By Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, a member of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. Senator, the messiness of that area is beyond imagination. We have the army of President Assad. We've got the Russian Air Force over there. We've got Hezbollah over there. We've got ISIL and all these. How do we avoid having our guys, mostly guys, get killed fighting an all-sides war?
Yeah, there's no white knights there, and what we've already seen when we tried to run this train and equip program is that the so-called Syrian moderates really aren't interested in just fighting ISIL, right? They want U.S. help to be able to fight ISIL and to fight Assad. And so this fine line that we're trying to walk here, which is to put special forces on the ground to only fight one set of bad guys, when inevitably we're going to be asked to be drawn into the fight against Assad, is impossible. And of course, the very people we're trying to help are deeply intertwined with our mortal enemy, Al-Qaeda, or at least their affiliate there. It's really hard to understand, A, how we would stay out of a fight against Assad, a war that we have not declared as a Congress, and how we would stop from our help somehow benefiting the Al-Qaeda element inside Syria.
Do we have a plan for destroying ISIL?
Well, I don't think we have a plan for destroying ISIL today. No, I think our objective today is to degrade them, to keep them on their heels, to try to eliminate this inevitability of the growth of the caliphate. You can do that with sustained air activity. You can do that by continuing to stand up the Iraqi military to put pressure on them inside that country. Ultimately, I don't know that 40 or 50 advisors are going to really make a fundamental difference.
Okay, what's the goal then? Well, so why are we putting 40 or 50 advisors in if it's not for a military ambition?
Well, I mean, what you have seen is escalation after escalation, that we put in a handful of 100 troops into Iraq. It wasn't enough. And so I think you simply have to imagine that this isn't the last announcement, that we're going to start with 50, but that it will soon be at another number. That certainly has been the pattern of activity thus far.
You know who said that? Jack Kennedy, back in the 60s on Vietnam. He said it's like taking a drink. You have to take a drink, then the effect wears off, they tell you have another drink. It's always more troops. Westmoreland finally over 200,000 troops after Ted. There's never enough once we get in there.
And listen, maybe this is a show of force to try to make a play at the negotiation table, to suggest to the Russians and to others that we are serious, that if you don't come to the table and negotiate, that we have the stomach to actually put troops on the ground. But that's a real risky bet, because if these negotiations don't work, then you are stuck with a strategy that commits U.S. forces to the ground in a civil war that ultimately could become a quagmire.
Well, one of your colleagues, Senator Tim Kaine, one of your Democratic colleagues, by the way, on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, had some very critical comments about the president's foreign policy. He told reporters, many of the decisions that have made I strongly support, but we are kind of going from crisis to crisis. The president said his doctrine is don't do stupid stuff. That's not a big enough doctrine. By not doing stupid stuff, you're often not doing stuff that is stupid not to do. And while he said he supports much of what the president is doing, he also said, I don't think the administration really has a cohesive strategy in the Middle East. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think Tim's point here is that Congress needs to be at the table to help set this strategy. Listen, I think it's difficult. The facts on the change on a daily and weekly basis. So with the Russians there, it's hard to have a coherent, overwhelming strategy. You have to change. But Tim and I believe that Congress hasn't authorized the war against ISIL, and we certainly haven't authorized the war against Assad. So you've got to come to Congress.
Why? You know, in World War II, we basically decided to fight the Nazis, ally with the Soviets. You know, we didn't like the Soviets, never did, never will. But we made a decision. We made a decision to fight in Europe first, then in Asia. So we made a decision. Why can't we make a decision about dealing with Assad later? It's just another Ba'athist regime. We've been knocking off Ba'athist regimes now for years. It hasn't done us any good. We knocked them off in Iraq. We knocked them off in Libya. We're going after them in Syria. Why do we do this de-Ba'athification deal? It's such a neocon thing to be doing. How do we get involved in it?
So I get the sense.
In other words, when are we going to decide who our real enemy is? Is it ISIL or Assad?
Well, and I think that's the issue here, is that, you know, what we've proven over the years is that we're not real good at military engagement, period, stop, in the Middle East. And we're already fighting ISIL inside Syria, inside Iraq, trying to stand up a new government in Baghdad, trying to work with the Kurds and respond to a humanitarian disaster. That's hard enough to do in and of itself. You add to that a ground combat mission against ISIL and maybe Assad. It's just too cute by half.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Anyway, by the way, before you go, Senator Lindsey Graham called the president's strategy shift insufficient. Let's listen to that.
This is, in my view, an incremental change that will not change the conditions on the ground. In the eyes of the enemy, this is weakness. In the eyes of our allies, this is unreliability. ISIL is not going to be intimidated by this move.
Well, he's getting hit from both sides.
Yeah, and listen, there's no doubt that Republicans are going to come after him on this, and it's difficult. Listen, I think the president has largely gotten it right. I think he is largely committed to keeping U.S. forces off the ground, and I'm going to hold him to his word that this is about 50.
Do you still count him among the dovish side and against the hawkish side?
Yeah, I think he still understands the lessons from the Iraq War, and I think that this has to be a limited engagement. I think he's gone too far here, but let's hope that this is the last escalation.
Thank you so much, Senator Chris Murphy.